The reason why you guys could afford houses was
we
because
worked our ass off and bought it.
okay, how am I going to get a mortgage?
Well, you save up your money.
Why we can't afford to buy homes, and the price is starting as
Work hard enough, and you save your money and do it right. You could be like me, retired.
Your parents probably gave you the same financial advice most of us heard growing up. Work harder, go to college, stay loyal to your job, save your money, and eventually you'll be able to afford a house and live comfortably. The problem is that advice was built for a completely different economy. Back then, there were pensions, cheaper housing, and one income could support an entire family. Today, you can do everything right and still feel like you're falling behind. So in this video, we're going to talk about why some of the financial advice from older generations might actually be hurting your future than helping. As usual, I'll be featuring some of your comments in today's video. So if you want to be featured in the next one, definitely make sure to leave your thoughts down below. Telling my dad why I can't afford a house at 40.
The reason why you guys could afford houses was
we
because
worked our ass off and bought it.
okay, but you're trying to say that we don't work.
No,
Everything's
I'm saying
very
you're
expensive.
an idiot because you're living in a house paying all that rent.
Okay.
All right? All you got to do is you're
All right.
paying more rent than you would a mortgage.
Okay. How am I going to get a mortgage?
Well, you save up your money and
How? I'm paying the rent.
Oh my God! What a freaking asshole!
Man, I feel so bad. Times have changed, my friend. I don't know why he's attacking her like that. That's crazy. I really wish it was that easy to just save our money and everything will work itself out. It just ain't the same. I'm not here to argue with you guys about boomers or anything like that. All this video is meant to be is to just show you a difference in opinion and to maybe enlighten others of what is actually happening in today's world with cold, hard facts, that things are just different. Not saying that his advice is bad, because that is like the staple of, getting ahead, obviously saving, paying less for where you're living and things like that. Of course, we have to do that. But all we're trying to get here, all I'm trying to do in today's video is say things are a little bit more tricky, a little bit harder than what they used to be back in the day. But here's a tip for you guys, and here's the struggle. Here's the problem. Like, the advice is not bad. It is just outdated. That's really it. Unfortunately, back in the day, you probably could raise a family on one income and have your wife or your husband stay home and look after the kids. And you could probably get by decently okay, decently middle class. Fortunately, in today's day and age, you kind of need a dual income, and you kind of have to decide between starting a family or saving enough money for a house. You can't have both anymore, because if you have children in your 20s, let's say, you're essentially forcing yourself into a 2-bed, into a 3-bed, or into renting a house. And at that point, rent becomes so expensive that you can't afford to also be saving for a house, a home, a mortgage, something like that. It is a big problem in today's world, and essentially why I ain't having kids anytime soon. I would much rather live in a 1-bedroom apartment, which is hard to do with a family, because I am saving up for a house. Anywho, I wanted to read a couple of comments because this video went absolutely viral, and these are some of the comments people left on this TikTok. Don't argue with that generation. They won't get it. They actually had it easier than us. Oof. Good luck saying that to most boomers. They're not going to handle that accusation that well. Boomers didn't even have credit scores. Is that true? I almost need to look up when credit scores were invented, but come to think of it, I feel like credit cards in general were kind of a recent thing, let alone a credit score. Like, I bet your parents saw the rise of credit cards being created. I even made a video in the past where there was like a slide that stamped the credit card when you wanted to purchase something. So that's interesting. Wow, imagine growing up with not having a credit score. You're paying more rent than you would a mortgage. Exactly. That's the problem. Either way, you're screwed at this point. You have to, unfortunately, decide between starting a family or wanting a house, because it is nearly impossible to have both nowadays. If you start a family, you need more space, you need more room, which means you're going to rent a bigger space and therefore not be able to save enough money for a home. The other option, which is saving for a home, well, then you have to delay having a family until maybe your mid 30s. And by then it might be too late.
Boomers will tell you to walk into a job, go over to the manager, hand over your resume, and they'll give you a job on the spot. I'll tell you right now, someone did that at my last job. They got into the office, they gave one of the executives their resume and said, I want to apply for this job. And they were escorted out by security. Everyone at the office thought they were a psychopath. I didn't. I felt bad for the dude. I realized that this guy probably just needed a job, and someone older in his life probably told him, hey, you know what, just do this and you're going to get it for sure. It was kind of eye-opening for me because there was a lot of older coworkers that were making fun of him. And I was sitting there like, you guys give this advice and turn around and laugh when someone takes it. I don't know. The job market is so cooked, and I feel like older people especially just do not realize how bad it is. I'm fighting against a glorified search engine for a job, and these motherfuckers got pensions, bro. I honestly just realized this because I wasn't even thinking about it before, but they only had to write one resume, whereas we have to change it up for every single one so we can get past their ATS system. The boomer mind cannot comprehend 7 rounds of interviews to get an automated rejection.
Guys, I have been out of the job market, the rat race, for several years now. Honestly, ever since maybe like a year after I graduated college. I worked my first job as a marketing manager for about a year or two, and that was like at a local, like almost family run business. So I never really was in the corporate world. I can only like look on it from the outside. My fiance works in it, so I hear her experiences firsthand. But I remember growing up, and I almost feel like my parents did tell me, you kind of have to show your confidence and, walk into that office and show them your resume and say, hey, I want this. I want this job. And the fact that he said somebody did that, probably taking the advice of their parents, and they got escorted out by security, is absolutely diabolical. And the worst part is I don't think the older generation realizes how difficult it is to find jobs now. It is an entirely different experience. And honestly, the best advice I can probably give you, seeing it firsthand with my fiance, is if you can't beat it, join it. It's going to suck. It's going to be harder. You have to keep applying, keep tailoring your resume, even if that means finding some AI to help you tailor your resume. Using keywords like AI, integration, things like that can drastically boost your resume to the top of the AI pile. As most of you know, money stuff can get overwhelming fast. Not because it's complicated, but because everything is like scattered. Different banking apps, credit cards, investments, debt, bills. It's hard to tell where you actually stand without making some sort of elaborate Excel spreadsheet. And that's why today's video is sponsored by Monarch. Monarch is a private, ad-free personal finance platform we've worked with before. It pulls all your accounts into one clean dashboard: spending, net worth, debt, credit score. It's all in one place, so you're not jumping between apps or guessing where your money went. What I like most is that Monarch doesn't just track things for the sake of tracking. It actually helps you understand what's happening. You can finally see your wants and needs spending, spot trends over time, and even get AI-powered insights that explain changes in plain English. It's like an AI assistant tailored to your personal finances. You can ask it questions like why your spending jumped one month or why your net worth moved. Monarch has no ads, doesn't sell your data, and no constant notifications. Just a clear snapshot of your finances so you can make adjustments without feeling like money management is a full-time job. And if you share finances with a partner like I do with my fiance, Monarch makes that easier too. You can both see the same dashboard, goals, and recurring bills, which means fewer surprises, fewer awkward conversations, and way more alignment. And everything's secure. Monarch uses bank-level encryption with read-only access, syncs with 13,000 plus institutions, and works seamlessly across web and mobile. At the end of the day, Monarch isn't about perfection, it's really about clarity. Being able to actually visualize your finances and follow a budget is how people build real financial freedom. And Monarch helps make that a whole lot easier. So again, huge thanks to Monarch for partnering with me. You can start your free trial and get 50% off your first year by scanning the QR code you see somewhere on the screen or by using my link in the description of today's video. Anywho, I wanted to read a couple of comments that people had left on my previous cost of living videos. And if you haven't seen those, highly recommend you check them out. And if you want to get featured in the next episode, definitely make sure to drop a comment down below. I'm so sick of boomers telling young people to just make more money, go get a union job, work harder, Gee, why didn't we think of that? Let me put down my avocado toast and invent a time machine real quick so I can go back to a time when it was possible to just go get a good paying union job. Absolutely horrible, out of touch advice. They created the financial hellscape we're suffering in now. They vote in politicians who bust unions, take away our benefits, raise prices, cut jobs, cut regulations, keep wages low, and destroy every social safety net that helps people climb out of poverty. And they have the audacity to judge us for struggling. Boy, man, did that guy go in. See, listen, I'm trying to play Switzerland here and hear everybody out. I personally don't think, and I don't want to speak in absolutes, obviously not all boomers are like that. There are plenty that have the ability to see that we are struggling and times are harder. But I have tended to notice that there is a slight bias with boomers that a lot of them might not see the world differently because they haven't experienced it themselves. And that's okay. Everybody has different experiences with money. Some people grew up in a harder situation, so they view money differently, to hold on to it, not to give it out. People, they grew up with wars. We didn't. So there's so many different experiences and viewpoints that I don't want to judge anyone too hard, but it is something that you guys need to think about. We're all experiencing this world for the first time too.
The fact is that baby boomers could go to college and get a summer job and pay for their college, okay? And then they didn't go to college, they could go to high school and then go wait online and get a job where you could support a wife and kids off of that job. And that was the way of the world previously, that my grandfather worked in factories his whole life and his wife didn't work. And that was that. He owned a house, he sent kids to college, he had 2 cars, like they had a nice life. And these kids today come out with 6 figures of debt and are getting a job at, Starbucks, and houses are going for like 600 grand for, you know what I mean, for that same humble house that my grandfather had. The baby boomers all got rich by the value of their house just going up.
Couldn't agree more.
And it seems like not a one of them ever went, hey, but aren't we kind of like pulling up the ladder on the helicopter here? Like if my house is like skyrocketing in value, that's nice for me. I got a HELOC and I got like some money coming in now that I can invest in the market that's going up and make this income coming in. But what about the next generation? How are they ever going to buy a house?
They don't care.
And like no one seemed to care about that.
They don't care.
Even Tucker Carlson says boomers don't care. They're very internalized, living in their own bubble. And I think it's okay. It is what it is. It's whatever. It really comes down to the fact that because they didn't experience it, they really have a hard time believing that you're experiencing something different, that it's not the same, that rent isn't $700 a month anymore, that it's, $3,500 for a 2-bed, 2-bath. I really do believe the older generation just got lucky with owning a home at the time. It was cheaper and it's just turned out just straight dumb luck to be worth a lot of money in today's day and age. But I also want to say this, the entire world wasn't out to exploit them at the time. Back then, I truly believe the world was trying to help you. The country, the government was trying to help you with pensions, with better benefits, cheaper housing, better union jobs. And I think in today's day and age, the world is trying to hurt you, exploit you, make you trip, make you fall, and take all your money. They didn't have huge corporations out to take everything from you and get you into tremendous amounts of debt. Those companies were itsy bitsy tiny back when they were growing up. And today they're in full force. So my generation and my advice for you guys is you do need to be a little more strategic with where your money is going and the decisions that you make. Because honestly, college is not for everyone. And if it means going into hundreds of thousands in student loan debt that is non-forgivable, you really have to think twice about making that decision. Do I want to start off in the negatives or start off with 0 and build my way up? Another video I made, corporate greed has ruined everything. Someone commented, profits over people is known as a neoliberalism, not to be confused with liberalism. Neoliberalism is an idea popularized by the Nixon administration and perfected in U.S. economics by the Reagan administration. It's one of the biggest reasons why the prosperity that the boomers experienced has gone away. And this is a huge key too, that talks about consumerism and the rise of consumerism that took over in the late 80s and 90s and is absolutely rampant now. It's one of the main things I talk about on this channel that's really hurting Gen Z, the younger generations, and just honestly, everyone at this point here. With the way the world is going right now, it is more important than ever to create a budget or at least be mindful with your spending. When everyone is out to take all your money, buy now, pay later, student loans, credit card debt, new cars, and all the other things, higher rent, all the additional like with everything out to try to draw as much money, subscriptions, Netflix, Spotify, everything, drawing as much money, leeching out of your paycheck. You really need to focus on your overall spending because this wasn't around back in the day. Back in the day, cars were meant to last a very long time and be easily fixable. But with emissions and with things being made out of plastic and planned obsolescence in today's cars, they're almost forcing you to buy new ones every couple of years. This didn't go on back then. So you really have to live your life not on autopilot. You really have to be focused. You can't sit back and relax a little bit or you will get taken advantage of in today's world. So the boomers are, in a sense, right with saving your money, save your money, work hard, because in today's world, it's pretty much set up to hurt you than it is to help you like what it once was.
You work hard enough and you save your money and do it right, you could be like me, retired.
Okay.
I don't have to get up in the morning. I don't have to do nothing. Okay?
Man, I really wish it was the case. If they just don't understand. It's good advice. Don't get me wrong. But it's outdated advice because you have to be working so much harder. You have to make decisions that are so much harder. Do you want a family or do you want a house? Do you want to rent forever or do you want to be a mother? These are very difficult decisions that we have to face in our generation. I'm begging someone to make a TV show with boomers trying to survive and budget off our current minimum wage. Be like me, retired and totally out of touch with reality. Oh my gosh. I would not be surprised if he's able to retire because of the pension that his company was offering him because they used to care about their employees back in the day. That's non-existent. Don't even bring up a 401k because we'll get into that in a minute.
I discovered what a pension was today. Most of you probably know it as a 401k, but a pension is what was available to a worker before a 401k was even an option. And what the United States decided silently, collectively.
Let's read it. Pensions were employer or government-sponsored retirement plans that guaranteed workers a guaranteed, keyword, a fixed income after retirement, typically based on their salary, years of service, and age, also known as a defined benefits plan. They shifted investment and longevity risk to the employer, who was responsible for funding and managing the plan. So the employer took the risk, not the employee.
Corporations specifically, was that pensions were too expensive for the corporation. They were too good for the employee. Because a pension guaranteed that regardless of how the stock market performs, regardless of how the company does financially, they will continue to pay their former employee that has retired until they die. Now, all roads lead back to Reagan. So around this era, you can imagine some corporations looked at that and they're like, hold on, this is really expensive. How can we cut this overhead? You know, how can we reduce how expensive it is to pay people that spent their lives working with our organization, people that we owe everything to because they made us millions of dollars in profit while they got paid a base wage. And the answer was very simple. Take it away from them. Take it away from them. But you can't just leave it empty. You have to provide some type of replacement, right? This is where the replacement comes into play. The 401k was implemented as a retirement plan where the financial burden of responsibility is now on the employee. It's on the individual.
Exactly. And that is why our generation is fighting an uphill battle. Back in the day, it was focused on people. How do we help people? The government wanted to help its citizens. Today's world, it's essentially the opposite. How do we hurt them? How do we stop caring? How do we focus on helping the corporations, the big guys, you know, the big late stage capitalism, large companies, and essentially not care about people, profits over people. So instead of creating a pension that essentially was a nuisance to large corporations and good for people, how do we get rid of that and help corporations? Well, they got rid of it entirely and said, you know what? Instead of the employers taking the risk, let's make the employees take the risk. Now, they have to take the 401k. They have to endure the risk of the stock market. If the stock market falls when you're near your retirement, oh well, shame on you. Not my problem. Oh, you invest wrong? Oh, shame on you. Not my problem. Do we help you invest? Do we tell you what to? Not really. Maybe we'll match it. Maybe we'll be nice. But guess what? We get to deduct the entire thing on our taxes by giving you that money. We actually help ourselves more by giving you by matching what you have. We get to deduct that from our overall expenses and expenditures. So you see where I'm going with this? How it's a little bit harder now than it was back in the day?
Them motherfuckers can't understand why we can't afford to buy homes. These are 2 shotgun houses. They're shotgun houses, and the price is starting as... What the fuck is that? These are Yo. And they say we can't afford homes. Yeah, no shit. Look at these fucking... What the fuck?
$640,000 for that? I am in disbelief. It's honestly insulting. They literally, the builders, owned by some massive corporation, I'm sure, bought one plot of land meant for one house and found some way to split it in half and charge double. Oh yeah, well, we have it easy. Well, we just need to work harder. This is what we get for $640,000. You're going to be able to hear your neighbor open his eyes in the morning. Like, why are they so close? I'm surprised if there's even windows on that, on that interior spot. You can't even walk through it. That's how tight that is. God forbid something goes wrong and you have to get through it there. Hey, neighbor, you got any milk? Sure. Straight through into your living room. Unbelievable. Boomers, you have it so much easier in today's world. Rent versus household income. I think the craziest part is it started off the chart in the beginning in like the 80s where your income actually was more than like rent prices there. And now the gap has spread substantially. Unfortunately, I wasn't around when you could buy a 3-story house for 5 raspberries and a high five. Remember, this is just rent. Everything like houses, food, clothes, and other daily necessities have gone up too. Yeah, that was just rent prices, showing you the separation between income and rent. If I showed you the one between income and the price of housing, you guys would be sick. You'd be absolutely pissed off because that chart is even worse than the rent one.
Gen Z is the hardest working generation in American history, and if they were born in the 1950s, about 1/3 of them would be multimillionaires and retired by the age of 40. And this is not just my opinion, this is what the raw numbers say. Based on Federal Reserve numbers, no generation has worked more than Gen Z.
Oh, really?
In the 1960s, households worked on average about 38.5 total hours per week, compared to Gen Z 2-income households that are working 85 to 90 hours per week. And in addition to that, 55% of them have reported working some kind of side hustle or second job. And so the question is, if they work so hard, why are they so poor? And it comes down to 4 main factors: real estate prices, student loans, healthcare costs, and transportation costs. Let's talk about real estate. In the 1960s, a typical single-family house would cost between 1.5 and 2 times the median household income, but that was only one person working. Now with 2 people working, it's over 5 times that household income. Meaning if we put a typical Gen Z family with 2 incomes into a time machine back to the 1960s, they would be able to pay off a median single-family house by the time they turn 25. They also wouldn't have student loans. There would be negligible healthcare costs, and cars would have been cheaper, so would gas. And so they would be able to save an additional $4,000 a month that they would be able to put towards retirement. Compounded over 15 years from ages 25 to 40 with 8% annual return, this would mean that the typical Gen Z household would be at about $1.4 million in net worth by the age of 40 and have a paid off house at the same exact time, meaning they could probably retire in their 40s. 40s. And so what this says to me is that the US economy as we know it is being supported by the excess work of Gen Z households. If they didn't work as hard as they were working right now, real estate prices would collapse. There would be no one to buy equities, and so the stock market would go down. And so this notion that Gen Z isn't working hard and all of these memes that go back and forth on Facebook is completely nonsensical to me. They are the hardest working generation. Anyway, I hope that's of value to you. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you all on the next video.
Say it again for the people in the back that didn't hear it. I love that video. A few things to dissect in that. He brought up healthcare. Well, you know, in today's economy, in today's world, healthcare prices, the cost for insurance, medical insurance is through the absolute roof. It's another reason why people don't want to start families, because it is so expensive to pay for healthcare when you have children that get sick all the time. So that's one thing. And you don't really get good benefits anymore. That it's fighting tooth and nail if you manage to get that compared to what it used to be back in the day. The second thing with student loans, see, there was a time period, a switch where like it made sense to go to college, you know, and become a scholar if you could afford it. And typically, if you wanted to put in the work, you could essentially pay it off with working like a summer job, with working, you know, part-time somewhere else and paying the $3,000 to $4,000 a year it might cost to go to school. That's not the case anymore. You can't do that. You need a full-time job, a career, and then it might take you, you know, 7 to 10 years to pay it off, especially if you even had the idea of wanting to start a family the same time. Otherwise, you'd have to delay it, all your hopes and dreams, and then just hunker down in a one-bedroom or live with your parents and then pay off those loans. It's doable, but boy, does it suck. And then he brought up another point about cars, and that got me thinking many years ago, and I'm going to make a video on it. There was something called like Cash for Clunkers, where they bought like nearly 1 million cars that were perfectly running and drivable, and they crushed them all to reduce emissions and get them off the market so that they could essentially pump out more cars, newer cars, and get you into worse cars that were meant to break and fail and get destroyed, that are made out of plastic. So honestly, my advice and what I recommend, because this is what I do, is to really like find a way, be creative, start a side hustle. Unfortunately, that's the world that we live in, where you kind of need to bring in more income, but also find ways to reduce your expenses, reduce the amount of money that's leaving. It does inevitably help. I think, and I feel like a lot of people have so many expenses that so many people consider necessities when they're not. They're not necessities, they're luxuries. You don't need to DoorDash your food. You don't need to Instacart your food or Uber Eats or Grubhub or eat out all the time. All these things we've normalized as a society, but they're actually harmful when it comes towards building a financial future or becoming financially free. And I know that's easier said than done. And back in the day, there wasn't as much data collection and AI, so it was maybe even easier to save some money. But in today's world, more than ever, with these massive companies collecting all the information and data and advertising and social media, you really do have to look at what you're spending, because it's easier than ever to be overspending. So this is an interesting comment that somebody left on the channel. We boomers did not buy our house for an acorn. We saved, we sacrificed, and we bought a home. We worked, we budgeted, and made a choice to buy a home versus pay someone else's mortgage. Yeah, that's the point. We kind of can't do that now. My husband was military, and because of all this hard work, all of his hard work, we saved a ton on a down payment and interest with a GI Bill. We aren't soft or expecting anyone to pay our way. No acorns here. We work, so sick of whining and BS that somehow life was so much easier for us. It wasn't. We didn't have social media to distract or detract from our lives. We worked, we made a real life for ourselves instead of sitting in front of a camera whining, comparing and carrying on about how unfair life is. Yeah, this is real great, except what you didn't have back then was massive companies and corporations that were collecting data and studying like human psychology and the way the brain works so that they can find creative ways to suck and exploit all the money out of you. You didn't have that back then like we do today. Also, as I've shown in previous times, like the wage gap, the difference just between how much money we make versus how expensive houses are, the fact that, you know, corporations own majority of these homes is insane. That reminds me of another story. I had a friend here that just bought his first home. Congratulations if you're watching this. He moved to a new community that was built, an HOA community, because that's the newest thing now. It's very hard to find new communities that aren't HOAs. And he's like one of 4 families on the block. And that's not because there's only 4 houses on the block. There's, 30, 40 all in the area here. The thing is, those other houses are either owned by companies that are Airbnb-ing them or owned by boomers that made them investment properties or rentals or second family like summer homes. So half or 3/4 of the block is empty, and he's the only family, one of very few on the block, actually using a starter home for that purpose. So this is a great example of the bubble. Not to say that it wasn't hard back then. I am just saying things have changed and things are harder essentially now. That advice is semi-outdated. Things are different.
Anytime a millennial is trying to explain this to a boomer, they always use the same example. They go, well, my interest...
Boomer here. And I bought a house in my 20s in the early 80s, and it was easy. But back then, corporations hadn't learned yet how to suck money out of the system. Housing was never supposed to go up more than a few percentage points and be this little security blanket, but it's turned into so much more. It's turned into this huge financial manipulation, and now it's just all about creating these huge bubbles so that huge profits can be made. Real estate has been bastardized and commercialized and profitized. So what is the future going to bring? I have no idea, but it's going to be a very bumpy ride.
And this is exactly why I don't speak in absolutes, because I'm happy that, there are some boomers out there and some people that are seeing what is going on in today's world. 25% of single family homes are owned by investors. That's a problem. I'm pretty sure this happened when 08, 09, the housing market crashed, and the economy, like the government, bailed us out by opening up the gates and allowing other countries to buy real estate in the US. That's not allowed anywhere else in the world. You go to Japan, you have to be a resident of Japan, living there full time to purchase a house. But here in the US, I'll give you another story. My parents, are one of the very few remaining on the block that actually live there, since like my childhood. All the other people have moved out. Every other house in my area on Long Island is being bought out by people that live in China, parking their money here in the US. That's insane to me. And this is what's happening. They allowed all these other foreign investments in private, equity to buy up single family homes, and that drives the prices up. This is the problem. We're having a housing shortage.
Dog, I think I'm done with fucking boomers as a whole. And this is not a unpopular opinion. I think most people in my generation and the next generation are done with what boomers have to offer the world, which is absolutely nothing substantial. All they do is take, and then hoard their wealth, and then no transfer of wealth takes place. I'm sick of it.
I'm just going to pause it. He's entitled to his opinion. I don't like to speak in absolutes, but we're going to hear him out.
And I just saw a video of a daughter and father discussing the current housing situation, right? Father was boomer, daughter probably Gen Z or in my generation, right? She was discussing how it's hard to find a mortgage that's affordable, and he immediately comes with, well, you're paying all that money in rent, that's why you can't afford a mortgage. And she's like, right, exactly. And he was just like, well, you need to save up your money. She's like, how am I supposed to save up money when I'm trying to pay rent? And then he just turns around and is just like, I can't talk to you about this. And his excuse for she was like, well, you were able to afford houses because the housing market was more affordable. The economy was more, I would say it was the living wage at the time. It equated, at least to a certain extent, whatever that housing market was. And the job market, same thing there, right? And his thing was like, I worked my ass off. So are we, man. We work our ass off too. But we were in a completely different economy back then, completely different job market back then, and completely different housing market back then. And they can't seem to understand that. I don't understand why there's so much disconnect. And that's what the thing that pisses me off the most, that you cannot have a conversation with these boomers without them bringing up the two talking points that they love to use, which is like, I worked my ass off, and insinuating that we're not, or two, that you need to save more money. In this economy, that's actually very fucking hard. I try my very best to save money.
Of course.
In fact, I actually think I'm doing a pretty damn good job. I put at least 25% of my paycheck, every single paycheck goes to savings, at least 25%. And half the time it's usually more than that. And guess what? I still don't have even a fraction of what it would cost to purchase a mortgage. And I would have to do that monthly. Like, even if we were to incrementally increase the wages, what do you think is going to happen to the housing market? It's going to do the exact same fucking thing. Like, genuinely. Like, it's not to say the entire generation is bad,
Okay.
but almost every example I see is just like, cannot seem to put themselves in the point of view of this generation and the next generation, have fucked it up for their kids and their grandkids, and they just don't care. And their excuses are the same every single time. You got to work harder and you got to save money. It's like, those are the basics of stuff, man.
Of course.
Like, we all get that. Do you think just a bunch, like, and then like the avocado toast, you're spending money on, no, dude. We have unaffordable prices across the board. And we have a wage that is not livable across the board. And we have houses that we are trying to live in, not just increase the wealth of these fucking properties, trying to live, start a family within these houses. And the options are limited at best. I'm fucking done with them. I'm fucking done with boomers.
It really is like that, though. Like, every time I feel like I've finally caught up to maybe having, you know, a sizable down payment for a house, housing goes up 15% and I'm screwed. And now I need to have an additional $100,000 to put down. It's like every time I try and get there that I think I've worked hard enough, housing shoots up another 20, 30% in value. And I'm back to where I started from. It really does suck like that. But the other thing, and I think the problem with my generation that we're having here is it's like we're hopeless. We know that we will never be able to afford a house. So it's like, we might as well spend the money while we have it and get the avocado toast and get the coffee and get the things like that. And it's true. I mean, it's like, if I'm never going to afford a house, I might as well enjoy what I have while I have it. But it's tough. And you can obviously enjoy that, but you don't let it get too out of hand, because then it becomes impossible. It's already stacked against us. It's already difficult, but it is still achievable. So don't, let it get out of hand where you have so many expenses now that you just can't afford anything and you're living paycheck to paycheck. Well, guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on this disparity down in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why is there a disconnect with boomers? I'm really open to hearing your thoughts on both perspectives. If you're a boomer, let me understand why. Let me hear it. Is it harder back then than what it is now? What do you think about this evidence that I showed you today? Let me know what you think, Gen Z, down in the comments below. If you haven't already, definitely make sure to smash the like button, turn on post notifications, subscribe. And if you haven't seen my corporate greed insanity episode, definitely make sure to check it out right after this. Peace.